If you've been watching, as you know, we've been talking with candidates the last several weeks, really focusing on their campaigns, particularly the statewide candidates. And today we're talking with Dan Matthews, who's our endorsed and supported candidate for lieutenant governor, separately elected of the governor on the same 4 year cycle. And, Dan has been running a very good sort of grassroots campaign for lieutenant governor. And Dan, welcome. Glad
Thank
you're
you.
here.
Thank you, Jim. For
And,
pleasure.
let's start out really not even talking about politics or policy. A big part of your campaign stump speech is you just talk about your personal story, and many people watching are just getting to know you. But let's talk about that remarkable personal story. You're growing up as a kid and what you've done in your life. Just let's set the table for who you are and
Sure.
what you want to do as lieutenant governor.
Sure. Yeah, it is. I think all of us are kind of, when we reflect back, we were kind of prepared for the things that happened to us or not. And in my case, born into a family of, somewhat meager means. My dad had been in the Coast Guard World War II, and he and mom were married just before the war broke out. And when I was five and a half, he died of polio just 2 months before the Salk vaccine was released, leaving behind seven kids, all under 13, and a wife of 33, wondering, what am I going to do? And I think his military benefits paid for his burial, and that was about it. So, but mom's faith and the surrounding family and her fortitude really are the things that carried her through. We all graduated from, of course, high school, college, attended and graduated from college. Five of us got advanced degrees beyond college, and it was six boys and a girl. My sister was a tough cookie. In fact, she was an Olympic athlete, and now lives in Haifa, Israel. Told me the other day, I'm staying, and Haifa is 25 miles from Lebanon, so whoa. But yeah, we're still connected as a family. But I think the message I get from that was strength through adversity, Jim. That there is a certain amount of strength people develop because of the situations, the challenges that confront them in life. And obviously, the loss of a father is critical. And I've told people that in his pocket, they found a little slip of paper with his dreams, get a farm, get a car, and then he put station wagon, too many kids, or something like that. So, but he had dreams, and that really speaks to the greatest generation coming off the war. They had dreams, they had designs for life, and it was that upward mobility, and nothing will stop us, and that really played out in all of us. Into college, I graduated, or I majored in political science, and it was just a field of interest. Actually, started out in physics, different kind of academic.
Politics often defies physics. That's
Yeah,
true.
that's right. Yeah, gravity. But soon found that political science was definitely my calling, and was later in my junior senior year, I was an intern to a senator down Olympia who had a marked influence in my life. As you can imagine, I gravitated toward mentors who could speak into my life what a dad couldn't do, because it was his absence. And Fran Holman was that guy, a friend of Dan Evans and Slade Gordon. But he was a Rhodes Scholar, just a brilliant man. But it was his integrity, Jim, that really captured my attention. And I spent many hours with him at their private home and out on the Pacific Coast, and with Claire, his wife, and explaining the hurdles that he'd had, the challenges in the legislature, in the Senate, and it just had a real influence. And if I ever do anything like that, if I ever aspire to that, I hope I could be half of the man he was. His integrity, his character. Whenever he would talk on the floor, it was like E.F. Hutton. Everyone would come to a stop, and they would listen to Fran Holman speak because of his acumen for sure, but his incredible integrity. There was such a record of it, and so that did influence me. In college, again, political science. Later on, when after graduating from college, I went into the Air Force, and while I was in the Air Force on active duty, I got a master's in public administration, thinking that if I go into law or whatever, and actually was admitted to law school, that I would need a background in public administration, urban, state, and federal government, or governance was my specialty. But instead, I applied to one airline after 7.5 years in the airline or the Air Force. I flew fast movers for a short time and then flew transports, including in Vietnam. And then got out, went right into the reserves here at McChord, and flew there for 15 years. We were activated during Desert Storm, so I've flown in 2 wars. Of course, I think I mentioned the other day that I remember being spit on in one war and yellow ribbons for the other, and parades, and two different, a real dichotomy in acceptance and rejection, I guess. But I applied to the airlines, was hired, just one airline, hired with Northwest Airlines, flew for 31 years, was a captain, instructor, and examiner when I retired in the 747. Almost immediately went to work with Boeing as a instructor and in learning development, pilot instruction, and leadership. And all of these things seem to have been a thread of leadership and responsibility as my life just directed it that. So during my civilian time, while I was flying with the airlines, we were having kids, and I ran for the school board in Shoreline, North King County, and served for 4 years there. That was a very, very big challenge. Also on that school board was a lady named Patty Murray. So I tell people I've been in 3 wars. But all of that taught me, and again, several men who came along and spoke into my life, that mentorship of speaking that character is what matters. It's not your agenda. And if you're serving people, I remember one, Stan McNaughton taught me that it's people. Dan, it's people. It's not all the stuff. It's people. Listen to the people. They'll tell you what you need to know. And, Rotary has a saying, service above self. And if we're thinking a lot about ourselves, it's a big ego trip. We've missed the boat in public service because it is a sacrifice. And we look back to our founders who wrote right in the bottom of that document, pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And so that's what I've been doing and getting involved in public affairs. The lieutenant governor is an important position, and I saw that it was not really covered with candidates, and so I, as they say, put my hat in the ring, and the rest is history here.
Well, a lot of people aren't even sure what lieutenant governor does in our system. Again, separately elected of the governor, doesn't have to be in the same party even.
Right.
And the clear responsibility of lieutenant governor in Washington is the individual is the president of the state senate, and if need be, a tie-breaking vote in a state senate vote on a bill or a budget. So you would be presiding over the state senate during the legislative sessions, but there's a lot more to the job. And you've spoken well about some of the sort of more statesman-like qualities of being lieutenant governor. Tell us all a little more about that, what you see the job as being.
Well, and that, Jim, that's the critical aspect, and I think that's why I said that it feels like the opportunity being here, I think they call crisis, the confluence of opportunity and preparation. And if I thought I was prepared for something, it would be a role like this, because in the flight deck, we use a term called crew resource management, which is a paradigm of bringing the crew together and speaking not just to the 4 or so of us up at the flight deck, 747 going, Seattle to Tokyo, 10.5 hours, etc., but all the flight attendants in the back. So I've got a crew of 25 some people, and more than 400 people have entrusted their lives to the decisions, our professionalism, our conduct, and the crew we bring together. And it's a perfect parallel to what the lieutenant governor does as in presiding over the state senate. That it's a relationship building exercise of bridge building with people on both sides of the aisle and even members of the House, so that you know the people, you know the players. Certainly, it's not a big challenge to get to know 49 different individuals, but that is the first objective, to know both sides and what we can do. If you will, come let us reason together. It's easy to be political and stake out your turf. It's harder to build a bridge across a chasm, especially if it's a gaping chasm. But just imagine in the cockpit, if we're flying along and the co-pilot over there, I don't like you, and people in the back would be very disconcerted
And
because
rightly so.
because wait, with the conduct of this flight, we want to be smooth and happy, and if there are bumps up ahead, tell us about it. And so that's the same thing, that the lieutenant governor has a real role of bringing people together and trying to dissolve the differences. And so that being a statesman, you mentioned that word, is so critical, that if we can see that policy isn't the big thing, that people are being affected here, and if we can practice real civility and have an adult conversation, then the differences we have can be discussed and really, I think, approached from a human standpoint. And I think we've lost. We know that for 40 years we've been dominated by one party pretty much, and that one party rule we know has a real downside, especially for the party in rule. And they could start to disregard the other party. They can start to just feel like they've got carte blanche, and you just be quiet. We'll just take care of this, and that is counterproductive to real progress. That we know, again, in the cockpit, that would not be productive, because the captain, if he's got a good crew, they will tell him, we think we should direct our attention this way, or whatever, and that's a productive. That paradigm, by the way, has now been taken to operating surgical theaters around the nation. Johns Hopkins, the Mayo Clinic, and others are practicing CRM as applied to medical procedures, because a team approach is much more effective than a personal agenda approach.
True that. And finally, talking about bridges and people, you stopped by Everett recently, where there were some people on a picket line, and had a good chance to talk with them one-to-one.
I did.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that just day before yesterday, we live pretty close to Painfield, so I stopped by the picket line there and just parked and came. I was still coming from a meeting, so I was in my suit and a little different than the attire of the guys on the line there, but I introduced myself, and as a member of the Airline Pilots Association, the pilots union, for 48 years or whatever, I knew what they were going through, and so I just talked. What's up, guys? What are the issues? And that's kind of what any of us involved in public life should be doing: is listening to the people and finding out what's the beef. What are you really concerned about? It isn't the big high committees and commissions and all that we chair. It's the effect on people in the state, and whether it's homelessness or housing or whatever, these things occur because we're not addressing it in other than sometimes a perfunctory way. If we just throw money at a problem, I would not like it in my plane if people were just throwing money at an engine that's having difficulty. I'd like to really address the problem in the proper way. And so I took time to talk to the guys, and I told them, I said, guys, mention to your bosses, your union bosses, that is, that a Republican stopped by and is conversant with the issues and understands the health care and the pension and all the issues, and how far distant leadership at a company can be with its people. When companies forget their people, that's when you have crisis. And I think some of the great people of the past, one in particular, said that you could take all of my business away, but if you leave my people, I'll build it back within 5 years greater than before. But if you don't let me have the people, I'm nothing. And so we're in a people-oriented business for sure. And the people of the state of Washington are best served by people who are committed to listening, to building bridges, like I mentioned, statesmanship, and dissolving the rancor and the partisanship. You know, building a bridge that matters, that will last. And I think I'm so proud of the team that the party's assembled. We've come from different backgrounds, but I look at Matt Hawkins as the auditor and Sharon Hannock, the treasurer, and all those candidates offer great experience and talent to back up. Dave Reichert is our governor. He's the point of the spear, and my job will be to be his wingman, to back him up and to facilitate his policy agenda and that with the legislature by building bridges and having relationships throughout Olympia. I think that is my goal, and I see it as a great challenge, and I'm looking forward to it. And then you mentioned one thing that if the people are out there are listening, if they want to go to our website at electdanmatthews.com and connect with us. Some even do. I got a donation the other day from a guy who said, "You're speaking my language, Dan. Yeah, thank you for putting yourself out there." And I didn't even know I was speaking his language, but I appreciate that kind of input because it's a humbling experience to get out there, and I'm not spending tons of money. I'm up against tons of money, but that's okay because I'm connecting with the folks out there who want to know that whoever is going to lead them is listening to them.
That's everything. We'll include the link to Dan's website below in the comments. If he's speaking your language, go and make a contribution and help Dan stay on the road and stay on the airwaves. There are about 50 days left in this election cycle. November 5th will be election day. And I sure hope we get bridge builders in these positions in Olympia instead of what we've had in the past. The time is ripe for change. That's it for this update. We'll talk again soon. Until then, stay strong and be well.
12 minutes.